I see coming in 2012. We've got these converging cycles. We know that with the precession of the equinox, this is in the geological record, we have that. We know that the sun flips every 11 years, which is going to occur 2012. And we know that there's this incoming object that's also approaching. The fact is, it is true. We do know that there's an object, it's called Nemesis, is the best term for it, this approaching dwarf star. I don't like to use the term Planet X because it's not a planet. So we need to call it what it is. It's a highly compressed dwarf star, and it has a thermal signature, and it has an X-ray signature, and it has a lot of debris around it, asteroids and other junk. The Chandra X-ray telescope reports this object coming in the inner solar system between Jupiter and the Sun. That's a fact. The same as the SOHO is showing strange sun activity with decrease and now going to be an increase. And they're telling us specifically in public reports that they expect this solar cycle to peak in the next 3 to 4 years, 2012 or thereafter, which is just the next year and a half, is going to be 50% more active than any previously recorded sun cycle. Back to Galileo, 24 cycles. The thing that I think is criminal is that the scientists and the politicians are not telling the public, because if you were to know, for example, with a certain percentage of probability that a solar activity would create a pole shift, which would cause a breakoff of a major section of the Mauna Loa supervolcano in Hawaii that would cause a tsunami to strike California, traveling at Mach 1 at half a mile high, I think it would be criminal not to tell those people to get out of the way. Now, it's approaching what's called below the ecliptic, which means it's below the plateau of the planets which circulate like a disk around the sun. As it approaches the sun, its velocity will increase because it's going to be yanked in by the sun, and then it'll whip past it and then head back out into space in a hyperelliptical orbit. So its effects would be expected to pull a plasma discharge from the sun below the ecliptic or below the plane of the Earth as it approaches, and so it's more likely to affect the southern hemisphere. It also is likely to induce a tweak, if you want to call it like a ping, like an electromagnetic pulse weapon. The energy is released with the plasma of the Earth, which is absorbing all this plasma energy, and if it hits specific frequencies, there'll be a kind of we call a coup contra coup effect, where it'll hit one place and then it'll ping and hit the opposite side of the Earth. What it's going to do is this: it'll cause the sun to burst out sunspots and solar mass ejections, and that'll perturb the magnetosphere of the Earth, will cause the release of plasma to cause major superquakes and volcanoes, increase rainfall, and could break off the volcanic island there in the Azores off the African coast that could cause a tsunami 540 miles per hour heading toward North America at 800 to 900 feet high. In the Pacific, the depth of the water off of the Hawaiian Islands is miles down. Mauna Loa, the cone builds up, and it has a shelf where the magma builds up and flows over the side, and it forms like a big mushroom. Well, if that breaks off because of a major superquake, you got a giant slide of Mauna Loa, according to the San Jose Tsunami Center and the Research Center in Switzerland. The two top centers in the world. They've predicted that it would create a super tsunami that would be Mach 1 or 740 miles per hour, traveling toward all of the Pacific coastal areas, Japan, North America, South America, at half a mile high. That's a real possibility. Now, we're not talking about rolling to Emirates, where the whole Earth is swept by tsunamis across the Rocky Mountains and all that stuff. But we are talking about some very big tsunamis that might not occur early, but occur late. And if there's a major flip in the magnetic field, and there's a major global superquake where you get a massive release in quakes all over the Earth at the same time, the kill zone is 80% of the world population within 100 miles of a super tsunami hitting the coastal areas. The governments are not preparing the people for this at all. The globalists know that there is changes coming, and they're prepared to survive.
It's way underground, it's way secret, and it's big-time stuff.
Yeah, and they're getting ready step by step to set up the final stages of world government based on a carbon credit new green bubble, so they can steal the last tiny bits of crumbs of wealth. So only the global super elite are there, and then the killing fields will start. Then they'll release plagues, then they'll start wars or rumors of wars, then they'll cause or amplify earth changes, or if they're coming, they won't provide any protection for the public.
They're sheep dipping the entire society to kind of buy into the lies of what's going on.
We've got an economic system which was in the fall of 2008, they literally are collapsing it and pulling the money and credit out of the real economy into a casino economy. And according to economic experts, they've contracted it by the world economy by 1/4 of the money on the planet. I'm predicting that we're going to have a move to try to set up a false flag like a nuclear explosion in one or more cities in the United States, because they want the distraction of us to have to go to war to pull us out of the so-called depression which they created. And at the same time, they also want us to be distracted and have a biometric system set up so they have total control of the population so that we won't interfere with their survival when they take their golden tickets and go underground. Don't tell the public, distract them with war, austerity, famine, and depression so they won't interfere with us going underground to hide from what's coming so we can reemerge decades or centuries later when the earth is fit to live in. Where the big aha comes is that we now know that the magnetic flip of the sun is about to happen in less than 2 years, and the magnetic flip of the earth has already started, which means it can tip it over. And we also have proof now of a cycle that's roughly every 36 to 3,800 years of an incoming dwarf star that's estimated between 5 and 20 Earth masses that is now between the inner solar system, below the ecliptic, or the plane in which the planets rotate around the solar system, and coming in now between Jupiter and the asteroid belt. So the WISE satellite and NASA and the Jet Propulsion Lab here in California is monitoring it. They know this object is coming in. Dr. Harrington, who was a senior astronomer back in the 90s, discovered this, and he went down to Auckland, New Zealand. He went to Australia, and he actually found evidence that, in fact, it was already published back over 16, 18 years ago, that there was, in fact, quote, a dwarf star. I don't like to call it Planet X because it's not a planet. It's a dwarf star. It has an infrared signature, which you can pick up, and it has an X-ray signature, but it doesn't give off visible light. So you can't see it unless you use infrared, or even better still, X-ray. Infrared and X-ray are the only ways to see this. You can also see it if it perturbs or starts to move, as it's moving now between Jupiter and Mars, where there's a giant belt of asteroids that is likely to perturb or move them, or even to pull some of them with it, because it's got quite a mass. And it's coming in from the constellation Scorpio. Here's the issue. They know this, and when the big aha comes, it's like all these converging cycles tells us, and this is why all of these prophets, they talk about the Nostradamus effect. They have the series, but if they all looked at it just prophetically, what I'm telling you here can be verified scientifically. We've got evidence from the Chandra X-ray satellite. We've got evidence from IRAS, the infrared satellite system. We have evidence from the South Pole Telescope. It's a public domain. You can go online, but also I have sources that are classified. If we look out with satellites, if we look at the geological record, if we look at the magnetic record of the magnetite in the rocks and volcanoes, if we look at all these evidences of species die-off or the telluric fields in the oceans, because when these pole reversals happen, it kills on average 84% of the life in the oceans. Oceans are very conductive of electric currents, so if there's a lot of plasma discharges through the oceans, a lot of the ocean-based life forms are going to get fried, and it kills 14% of the life on land.
And they are certain that a X or M-class coronal mass ejection will strike the Earth, wiping out most of the power grid and regular communications and satellites. And they know that, and they're not going to harden the system or have any redundancy, both from conventional sources, which people can check out, and from my classified sources, both in the United States, Canada, and Australia. Those are 3 countries. The government, if there's a natural disaster of any kind, they're going to turn off the grid. And number 2, they're not going to protect the grid from a coronal mass ejection, which is, according to my reports, is a virtual certainty by 2013. We're going to have a massive surge of ultraviolet and high-energy X-ray and cosmic radiation. It's much more malevolent than the movie 2012. The real danger is the collapse of the magnetosphere, which is already happening, that people can verify themselves, because the cosmos, without the magnetosphere, is like being inside a microwave. When the magnetosphere collapses, it's going to allow high-energy ultraviolet light, X-rays, and cosmic rays to strike the Earth, killing a lot of life, including most of the grassy plants, a lot of the trees, and a lot of the upper benthic layer of the oceans. It'll come back, but it'll take a while.
You have a convergence of cycles. The poles of the sun flip every 11 years, which we call a sun cycle. Now the sun's starting to change its activity. It's starting to rev up in the end of solar cycle 24. It's been very quiet, down to about 5% or less of its normal sunspot activity. The poles on the Earth, they flip every 11,500 years. It occurs with an increasing crescendo of earthquakes and volcanoes, which release sulfur dioxide, increase rainfall, and push us into an ice age. And that's in the geological record. You can actually find the record in volcanic rocks and rocks in the Canadian Shield and around the world that these events happen on cycles, just like the Mayans talked about. So what we've got now is these events, which means crop failures. Long before you ever have, quote, an ice age, you're going to have fluctuating weather and rain when it shouldn't be, so crops will die, or drying, or drought when it shouldn't be, and then extreme rains in other times, which is what we're seeing. Earthquakes and volcanism happen in cycles that happen with the precession of the equinox. Now, it takes 26,000 years for us to rotate around the galaxy, but it actually, because of the rotation of the sun, effectively is reduced to 23,000 years, and we have this precession effect that happens at halfway through that. And every 11,500 years, there is a reversal of the magnetic field of the poles of the Earth.
The geomagnetic reversal started in the late 90s. 2012 is just the midpoint of that process. We know that the coronal mass ejections are a virtual certainty, an 1859 type event.
And there's little cycles. This is one of the bigger cycles. There's an even bigger cycle of grand ice ages that happen roughly every 105,000 years. So you've got a polar cycle that's going to flip in 2012, a precession of the equinoxes, which we're actually starting into now and will kind of culminate on or after 2012. It's not on a precise date. And so we've got convergences of things that are happening at the same time. One is the mini ice age cycle. We're also converging in that one. That's according to Robert Felix and other experts. So the long cycle, the short cycle, it's a cycle of 11,500 years. The shorter cycle, which is the 350-year cycle for ice ages, we're also in time for the 105,000-year big ice age as well.
They're not going to confront the public directly. They just want to convince us, like a made-for-TV movie, we're going into martial law. The fact is, we've been in martial law since the 1930s.
These people are feverishly building underground bases at the rate here in America, for example, of 2 bases per year, anywhere from $18 to $26 billion. 5.24 to 7.25 cubic miles in size, most of them in dormant volcanic domes or built with nuclear explosions underground.
Because I work with Special Forces Delta, I know what their COG plans are, and this is the same with not only America, but Canada, Britain, and other countries. If there are major catastrophes of nuclear war, biological war with weapons released, Earth changes, or a coronal mass ejection or anything, it's for them to hide in their, quote, hotels underground with their military forces surrounding them and lots of supplies and lots of games to play underground. And then after 6 months to come up after the so-called remaining population, if they survive and haven't eaten each other, scavenged each other, or killed each other, to mop up. If we knew what was coming, and we hardened our satellites to things like a coronal mass ejection or a magnetic field flux, or the reduction and the protection of the geomagnetosphere for, say, 30 days, and we had facilities to protect the population, we'd be fine. But what the government's going to do is allow it to happen. But if you're not protected, you're going to get burned, and you're going to get radiation exposure during those days and weeks when it's dangerous.
We're talking weeks here, 3-4 weeks, maybe.
Yeah, probably between 2 to 4 weeks max.
Well, how deep do you need to be underground? 2 or 3 feet of dirt above you?
8 feet of dirt or 1.5 feet of concrete.
8 feet of dirt or 1.5 feet of concrete.
Yeah, that's all. You don't need to be in an underground city. In fact, these underground cities, if there's major earthquakes, are going to be most certainly going to be their entombed hotels underground. They're not going to be coming back.
Live, this is One for the Record. I'm Diana, and today is November 23rd, 2012. It is Friday, very late Friday evening, and here are your updates for today. I will be attaching a video with Kevin Blanch in it, So that's adult language. Adult language. So if there's any kids in the room and things like that, this is only for adults. Just so you know. So after this video, I am attaching the other video. Stay tuned, but only adults in the room, please. Thank you. Over 18. Thank you. Alright, let's first go into the Extinction Protocol 2012 and beyond. I think a lot of people are still on the holiday weekend, so I don't know. Indonesia's Mount Loken volcano shaken by double eruptions. And then nothing else new. Alright, let's go out of there. Moving on. Japan, Fukushima. I can't get into the watchers. So, no one's watching the world right now. It won't let me in. So they must be doing something with their website. Okay, Fukushima. E&E News. Debris in Fukushima number 3 pool is inhibiting water flow, says nuke industry website. Concrete dust making it very murky. Also today, Asahi. Expert says Japan should be prepared for a possibility of magnitude 10 earthquake, days of tsunamis, only 1 magnitude below asteroid strike, and that's it. Alrighty then, I'm attaching videos for you. Can't get Dr. Deagle on. I bet you he didn't even have a report today. So what I'm going to do on the front of my report is give earth changes from a different report. Alrighty then, because this is his original earth changes. So, alrighty then, you take care, and it's 5 days down, and we're going into the weekend. You take care, and I'll give you a 2012 update later. I'll do it tomorrow. Take care, and I'll see you again tomorrow on the flip side.
Hi, Kevin Blanche. Today I want to talk about the science world, the marine biologist world, the academia world that has fucking got the 2.0 blackout of Fukushima.
Weather experts have looked into the Pacific Ocean south of mainland Japan and seen something that troubles them. They found the levels of acid is rising rapidly. The experts are worried about carbon dioxide in the atmosphere dissolving into seawater. They warn that could exacerbate global warming.
Academia, where the fuck are you? You motherfuckers, where the fuck? We're going on 600 motherfucking days.
They analysed data gathered over the past 30 years. They found the acid level rose at 5 times the pace of that over the last 250 years.
600 fucking days. Are you so fucking lazy? Is it? I guess there are no studies. Whose is the only ones? Really? Do we need to go get the SS Minnow fucking find Gilligan to take you fuckers on a 3-hour tour out along the fucking Pacific and drop the boat? Where the fuck? Even Greenpeace, what happened to you? Where the fuck are these studies?
Emissions of carbon dioxide have increased dramatically. Rising levels of acid can hamper the growth of coral reefs and plankton and upset the marine ecosystem.
We know that 90. Okay, we know that it slowly penetrates your bone marrow. And it gives you fucking what I have, leukemia, as I've been in the fight from fucking hell. I want you people to know this.
The fish that Kozo Endo and his crew managed to catch on Monday are not headed for market, but to a nearby laboratory. They're fishing in waters off the coast of Japan's Fukushima nuclear plant, crippled by last year's tsunami when its failing reactors spewed radiation into the sea. While many fish in the area are below the country's permitted radiation levels, bottom feeders that live near the seafloor are still topping the bar.
You know, I want to talk about SR-90. I want to talk about plutonium. I want to talk about cesium-137.
Marine chemist Ken Buesler says fish should now be free from radiation a year and a half after the meltdown.
It's a salt, cesium, like potassium, so very quickly if you shut off the source, they should be going down a few percent a day. In 2 or 3 months, it'd be practically all gone. And we don't see that in the fish that they're sampling throughout 2012.
A respected geochemist known for his studies of radioactive fallout in the Black Sea after Chernobyl, Buessler hit the headlines last month when he suggested that radiation could still be leaking.
There has to be a source, and they're cooling those reactors quite extensively. Some of that water is getting back into the ocean, either actively being pumped out after some decontamination or through leaks in the buildings. They're not able to contain all of the water that they use to cool.
But plant operator TEPCO denies the claim, and the Japanese ministry responsible for radiation sampling across Japan said they are excluding that possibility from their inquiries at the moment.
So we've sit on pins and needles, and we've waited for those scientific studies to come in. We've waited for those great marine biologists. We've waited for those great universities on the coast of California. We've waited for them as they know that precious beauty is their world. The University of Washington, Oregon State, University of Oregon, Cal Berkeley, Stanford, UCLA, San Diego State, on and on and on. We've waited. Oh, them studies will be right out. As whistleblowers been coming to me from different universities, oh yeah, we have them. Because we know this, factually. We know factually. The TEPCO is a bunch of fucking liars.
Well, good news for sushi lovers and not so great news if you're an Atlantic bluefin tuna. The Atlantic bluefin catch quota is going up next year. Members of the International Commission for the Conservation of Atlantic Tunas agreed at a meeting in Morocco that the total bluefin quota for 2013 can be raised to 13,400 tons. That's up 500 tons from this year. The Commission is responsible for management of bluefin fisheries in the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea. The decision was made after a survey concluded stocks of bluefin are showing signs of improvement. The members also agreed to gradually introduce a system to track where fish are caught and how they are distributed. They agreed to upgrade measures against illegal bluefin fishing.
We know they're fucking liars. We know the Japanese government are nothing but fucking liars. We cannot believe a fucking word they say. So what have we counted on? And I've said the whole time, over and over on this vlog, as we backdoored the media and exposed this when Gupta went fishing at Lake Chernobyl, when they used not only malice by not reporting, but, malice by not reporting. Malice, criminals, as we know the IAA are nothing but fucking liar, grandstanding, caviar-eating fucking criminals. As I see the report the other day, don't eat the caviar, they're telling you. Good, you IAA motherfuckers, eat it up. But the academia world, and all you assholes sitting in Europe saying, oh, these fucking Americans, where's these studies? What the fuck? You don't eat fish? You don't fucking live off you don't fucking feed off the fucking greatest food basket in the world? Where the fuck are you? We can't go back. We can't. Once the genie's out of the bottle, it's out of the bottle. It enters your bone marrow. We're seeing traces of SR-90, and I'm getting leaked by fucking university whistleblowers are leaking me. SR-90 is showing up all over it fucking fish. Big time. I know factually it is. I will not report the fucking links, and I'm not going to sit and fucking report until they are verified. Why? Because this is so dramatically fucking important. Those studies from the ocean mean everything. You fucking scientists, you're going to catch a cold from the ice inside your fucking soul. You motherfuckers. The blackout continues. We dealt with the media. Guys like me, Miss Milky Cloud, fucking Christina Jules, right? So many of you out there. So many have joined this fucking cause that I never left. So many. We backdoored the media blackout. We overcome. How can we fucking back there now? The science fucking blackout. We need those reports out of the Pacific so fucking bad. We have no idea. We know factually that it's been leaking into the Pacific. We know how much. We know TEPCO will never tell us. We know the IAA will never tell us. The NRC will never tell us. The media will never tell us. We need those studies so fucking bad. As you're going to catch a cold from that ice. And I'll tell you what. You think you're avoidable from this. And this is why the fucking downfall of this entire fucking country.
A sophisticated four-legged robot is poised to go where no one has gone before, inside the damaged reactors at Fukushima Daiichi. Researchers at electronics maker Toshiba developed the animal-like machine to help emergency workers know what they're dealing with inside the destroyed reactors. The radio-controlled robot stands about 1 meter tall, has 4 70-centimeter-long legs, 6 video cameras, and a radiation detector. It can step over obstacles up to 40 centimeters high and climb up and down stairs. The small vehicle fitted with a camera can be unloaded from the top of the robot to roam tiny spaces like the undersides of pipes. Toshiba officials say the machine can work for 300 days in a high radiation environment.
We'll improve machines by making it possible for multiple units to work together as one and work as humans in places humans can't go.
Toshiba officials are proposing that Tokyo Electric Power Company, the operator of the Fukushima plant, use the robot to research how to scrap the damaged reactors. Decommissioning in the wake of the meltdown is expected to take from 30 to 40 years.
A Japanese robot designed to withstand high levels of radiation and extreme heat at damaged nuclear plants such as Fukushima froze on Wednesday on its first public demonstration. Toshiba Corp unveiled Japan's own nuclear-proof robot on Wednesday. During the demonstration, the robot experienced a case of stage fright. The shuffling tetrapod locked up and suddenly froze after it tried to balance itself, forcing technicians to carry it away. Expert says maximum M10 earthquake possible. A Japanese seismologist says the maximum scale of an earthquake occurring anywhere in the world would be around magnitude 10. Judging from Earth size and the lengths of quake-triggering faults, a magnitude 10 quake would be 32 times more powerful than the 9.0 earthquake that hit northeastern Japan in March last year. The magnitude -9.5 quake recorded off Chile in 1960 is the world's largest known earthquake to date. A magnitude 10 quake would occur, for example, if an 8,800-kilometer fault along a northern Pacific Rim trench shifts 20 meters. The researcher says such an earthquake would result in tremors lasting 20 minutes to 1 hour and trigger days of tsunamis. The researcher stresses he's not saying a magnitude 10 quake would definitely occur, but he notes that Japan was hit by a magnitude 9 earthquake when it had been expecting a maximum magnitude 8. So people should be aware of what could happen.
It has been 1.5 years since the Fukushima nuclear disaster. Greenpeace has been to Fukushima City and the Iitate region for regular checks of radiation levels. We have found that in general, those government monitoring stations do not give a reliable indication of the radiation risks. The levels vary a lot in Fukushima City, but there are areas where, for example in parks, where the levels are above 1 microsieverts per hour at 1 meter, sometimes up to 2 or 2.5 microsieverts per hour. This is something we should be concerned about, because those higher radiation levels can create a health impact for a larger population on the longer term. The government is attempting to decontaminate Iitate village with the intention to let people move back to their houses.
いくら除染してもまた元に戻ります。飯舘村は 75% が山林です。で、住宅、そして農地、除染してもやっぱり山から汚染された水、そして汚染物質が飛んでくるので、除染してもすぐ戻ります。で、そこにもうなんか知らないけど村長さんがもう1年で返すような話してるようです。無理です。で、これ無理して返されればおのずと最後には何年か後には自分で身を絶つ人が出てくるんじゃないかと、そういう心配もしています。
The government has not been very successful in effectively decontaminating areas in Fukushima City and protecting the people who are currently living there.
The former Tokyo governor says Japan needs to look at the possibility of acquiring nuclear arms. The outspoken politician made the remark while preparing for a snap election next month. 80-year-old Shintaro Ishihara now leads a new opposition group. He talked to foreign correspondents in Tokyo.
私はね、 It would be good to conduct a simulation on Japan holding nuclear weapons because they can act as a deterrent. The decision of acquiring them or not can be decided later.
Ishihara surprised the public in April by announcing that the Tokyo government would buy the privately owned Sinkhole Islands in the East China Sea. Ishihara's remark led to their nationalization. The purchase has caused the current state of strained relations between China and Japan.
You regressed, it destroyed you, it caused collateral damage. That is what fucking cesium does. That's what fucking 90 does. That's what fucking 239 does. That's what 240 does. As people say, oh, the half-life 14 years, 28 years. Oh, fuck. Let's get real. It slowly enters your bone marrow. It slowly enters your bone marrow and gives you leukemia. And I'm fucking here to fucking tell you. Anybody who's been in this fucking fight, oh my fucking God. Your future's gone. I have no fucking future. I live one day at a fucking time. I don't know if I'm going to wake up in the fucking morning, go in and be sick, and then fucking count, say, fuck Kevin, fuck chemo on again, let's see if you can fucking live. This is an evil battle from hell that kills most fucking people.